Hello everyone, Aric Hall with the Blaze of Glory. Well, this is a perfect video for an out-of-season, not treasure hunting related activity. In early February of 2019, I finally made my way down to Temple, Texas. You know, the hometown of one Forrest Fenn. So I took some pictures. There were some things I wanted to put together. I'd hoped to see a few other things I didn't get to, but I saw what I needed to for the purposes of this video. We start with some pictures of the Lanier School. Now, I believe this was the elementary school that Forrest Fenn attended, that his dad became teacher at and then principal of. Now, there were actually, I think, two or three other schools that his dad would eventually become a principal of. There was another one, across the tracks on the other side of town. This building has been repurposed several different times since it was used as an elementary school. The building, it's still there. Now, the building that was Forrest Fenn's junior high school, that building was repurposed as well, but after so many years, they tore it down. It's been gone for, I think, several decades now, and I believe it's the same lot where this post office is now. If not, it's in that same block, but I think it was where the post office is now. As an aside here, while we're speaking of Forrest Fenn schools, I have no idea what building the high school was, but we're going to look at some pictures from the high school yearbook. This is the Cotton Blossom, the name of the yearbook for Temple schools, or Temple High School during that time. Now, the fact that it's named after cotton is a story or a history lesson all by itself. There's no cotton anywhere around. It was like living here in East Texas. We used to have cotton fields everywhere. It was the main agricultural crop of the 1930s. We had the Cotton Belt Railroad, buildings that were built around that, but that's all gone now. And the same is true in Temple. Now, I am working with the assumption here that Coach Clarence Wood is the same as Coach Concy Wood is the same of Coach C.G. Wood. Because if that's not one and the same person, then I'm fixing to make a right mess of this. But these are some of the yearbook photos of Coach Wood from the mid to late 40s at the Temple High School. This is the Coach Wood that Forrest Fenn has spoken of at length, and I think, if I recall, Forrest Fenn, Marvin Fenn, and Coach Wood at some point all went fishing together. And now we bring in the young Forrest Fenn. He's standing in the back row, close to Coach Wood. Forrest Fenn was on the B team. I guess that would be like the junior varsity team of basketball. And then we see him on the Kittens football team. And again, I'm assuming this is something like the JV team for football. What a terrible derogatory name to be called the Kittens. It's like the Powder Puff Wrestlers. Anyway, you notice in this picture, Forrest Fenn is the one person who is odd man out. He's the one person without his jersey on. Now, was Forrest just too poor to afford the jersey, or did he forget his jersey? Nothing like being forced to pose in a photograph without your uniform on. I also located a couple of photographs of Forrest Fenn when he was a basketball player in high school. Well, at least he was more into sports than I. I never had any interest nor the physical ability. Maybe that's what made him a candidate for being a mountain man and an outdoorsman in later years, and I'm not. Here we see a list of some of Forrest's high school activities. And you notice the picture of this handsome young Forrest Fenn. It kind of helps us to understand why he tells the story of looking in the mirror in later years and either seeing or imagining the young Forrest Fenn. I know the same feeling, and I'm not in my 80s. Here we see three pictures of June Fenn, Forrest Fenn's sister. The first one is in 1946 when June was a freshman, and then the other pictures are in 1948 where she is listed as a junior. And now we come to the beautiful Peggy Proctor, the lady that was described by Forrest Fenn as the best thing that ever happened to him. The first pictures are of Peggy when she was a sophomore in '48, and then 2 years later when she was a senior in 1950. I believe that's when she graduated. Now, about Skippy. Now, here's something that bothers me. Now, I could have missed it in the few yearbooks that I went through, but I never found pictures of Skippy Fenn, or, by his proper name. Was it Marvin Fenn Jr.? I never found these pictures. Now, I know there's one of the other YouTubers that posted some photographs of Skippy from the Temple time period, and that's where I got, I think, this picture from. But I was just a little bit curious why he's missing from the school yearbooks. I mean, he did go to school there, did he not? As we leave downtown Temple, we head north on Main Street, up to the old home site of the Fenn family. Now, the pictures have not changed from the picture you've seen from years, and those that are tagged to, Google Earth or Google Street View. It's still a largely vacant lot. That massive concrete front porch step is still there. I'm sure nobody wants to go through the trouble to try to remove that. Does anyone but me think it's odd that there are steps going up both the front side and the back side of this front porch concrete block? I mean, there used to be a house where those steps on the back side. How illogical is that? There's a little chain link fence and a storage shed in the back. And I'm making the assumption that one of the neighbors bought that lot just to have some more space. I have not searched the property records. That's just my 2 cents. As you stand in front of the old Fenn home site, no doubt annoying the neighbors by your presence, if you face north, you're a block away from the cemetery, and you can see the cemetery gate, even from standing in front of that lot. Now remember, this is where Forrest Fenn said that when he was a kid, he would escape from the house at night and walk up to the cemetery, and you have time to think in a cemetery. You have these sketches of him sitting there staring up into the starry night. If you could get into this gate, now that gate is locked. Now, you can't go into the cemetery there. You have to go around to the north side of the cemetery. But if you could go through this gate, headed from the Fenn home site, Fenn's parents are buried like 2 rows on your left and a few steps to the left. It took me a while to find exactly where Marvin and Lily Fenn were buried. This Bible passage that's on the headstone is a passage about a virtuous woman and having a wife to be proud of, and a wife who takes care of her husband, and a wife who's the envy of everyone else in town. Now there is a tree that is planted right up against the headstone. The fact that it is so close to the headstone makes me wonder if it was intentionally chosen by the Fenn family. I could be reaching for straws here, but the proximity caught my attention. Now, I'm not a horticulturalist nor a dendrologist. I don't study trees, but those big, fat, thick leaves remind me of what a magnolia tree looks like. I don't know if that has any significance to any of you. If you know anything about Forrest and his family and their favor for certain trees, maybe you can offer some insight. And before anyone asks me, yes, I looked all over the trunk and lower branches of that tree to see if anyone might have carved an F in it, and no, there is not one there. The next thing I tried to do was to find the location of the old Smith's drugstore. I thought maybe the old building would still be there. I mean, a lot of old downtown buildings are still standing, but I don't think that was the case. I went to the corner of 3rd and French. I took a picture of 2 or 3 of the buildings that are there. I have no way of knowing where exactly Smith's drugstore was. You may recall that it was Skippy Fenn and his friend Leroy that had the fireworks stand together, which was located on the sidewalk out in front of Smith's drugstore at 3rd and French. That's where the teenage girls decided to blow up the fireworks stand. You hear Marvin Fenn say, "Come on, Forrest, Skippy's been blown up." Don't ever be around teenage or young adult girls in duplicate. When they get together, there's no telling what they're going to do. The next place I went was to the Temple Railroad Depot Museum and Visitor Center. I had to go down there because of Forrest Fenn's story about sleeping at night at the house, having the window open, having his head propped up by the window, and listening to the whistle on the Katy Railroad that was about a mile from his house. So I went down to the depot to take some pictures and look at some history. Now, it's not the Katy Railroad anymore. I bought a little souvenir trinket of the Katy Railroad. There's kind of a sentimental funny thing there. My mother is nicknamed Katy with a Y, and she grew up in the days of the Katy Railroad, so she remembers it well. But apparently Forrest Fenn does too. I took some pictures out of the railroad yard. Of course, the railroad now is Burlington Northern Santa Fe. Now, how is that? Forrest Fenn is in Santa Fe. You have the Santa Fe Railroad at his hometown in Temple, and these plus-shaped symbols that are on BNSF trains and buildings. The Santa Fe Railroad symbol is the same as the Zia, the symbol of New Mexico, on the New Mexico flag. And Forrest lives in Santa Fe. The Santa Fe Railroad's taken over his hometown railroad. I don't know, that just seems strange to me. When you go inside the building, it has all of the charm of going into one of the Union Station buildings. I'm sure that was a grand building in its day, and of course it's been remodeled for both tourist and community events. When you go upstairs to the museum section, a lot of that is about local history and the railroad and how the railroad got to Temple. And like so many other railroad towns, the railroad built Temple, just like the railroad built West Yellowstone. One thing that stood out to me in the museum was another one of these wretched Royal typewriters. We saw Forrest Fenn took a picture of Jackie Kennedy with a Royal typewriter. But Forrest Fenn preferred the Model 5 of the Underwood brand of typewriter, and he published a picture of that in his books as well. One other place I wanted to visit in Temple was the Marvin Fenn Park. Marvin Fenn had made such a name for himself as a teacher and a principal, and Lord knows what else he did in community activities, but they named a park after him. Now, courtesy of urban development, that park has almost been gobbled up. It's surrounded by an expanding Interstate 35 and a retail district and a subdivision on the northwest side. I couldn't get in there because it was closed on the weekend, and the access point on the south side was locked anyway, but that's where I took these pictures from. To get into the park, you have to go around to the north side. There's a larger park and golf course, and I gathered they didn't really want people traipsing across the golf course to get to the Marvin Fenn Park that attaches to it. But I took those few pictures. I saw all I needed to see. There's nothing spectacular about it. I didn't see any picnic tables or playground equipment or walking trails. It just seemed like a field. I thought it was kind of a sad state of affairs if that's a park to honor somebody. As I left Temple, there's one place out between Temple and Belton that I had to go visit. And that's the bridge that Forrest Fenn claims to have jumped off of in the middle of the night to impress the girls, even though nobody was there to see him do it. It's the bridge over the Leon River. It's in the city limits of Temple, even though it's practically in the town of Belton. Now that bridge, if you look at the picture in Once Upon a While, the current bridge, it's been remodeled. The bridge, it's the picture published in Once Upon a While. I think it has 3 arches, and it has a slightly different metal frame underneath the bridge than what is there now. That bridge has been modernized, even though there's a placard there by the bridge that shows the date of the original bridge being built. Well, there you have it, my trip to Temple, Texas. This is one of those things we do in the off-season when we're not able to be out searching for the treasure chest itself. We study Forrest Fenn, we study the man, but it doesn't help us find the treasure. Remember to click like, share, subscribe, comment, and contribute.